Hi, Bobby. Welcome to the 2X eCommerce podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Fab. You are probably one of the highest profile guests on this show. You're the Chief Revenue Officer at Shopify. Shopify is a company I've adored. I've been in e-commerce since 2014. I was a Magento guy, and it just took 2 years for me to transition over to Shopify. But being very, it's a really impressive company in terms of what you guys have done. Do you just want to introduce yourself and give us a bit of a backstory? Because you've worked at Verizon, Microsoft, I believe, and several other companies.
I've been a little bit of everywhere. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you again for making the move to Shopify. We appreciate your business. So I started off in telco. It was actually before that I was a personal trainer at a health club, which is a really cool place to be when you're young and single. And then I realized at some point in time I probably need to grow up. And when I talk to new hires every once in a while in our new hire classes, I remind them that the way I moved from the health and wellness world to telecommunications was I had friends of mine who would fax me over their pay stubs, and fax machines back then were this waxy piece of paper that you'd have to go to one room and peel it off. And I would realize, oh my gosh, I'm probably in the wrong business, and I think this mobile thing may take off. So, I came over, initially started working for AirTouch, which was then purchased by Vodafone, which I'm expecting your podcast listeners to know very well. And then we're a joint venture with some properties in the US, became Verizon Wireless. And yeah, I spent 19 years. It was great to watch the growth of a technology that started off. I remember celebrating our first 1 millionth customer in North America. That's now, I think, 130 million. So like to go from 1 to 130 is a pretty interesting growth pattern, and lots of lessons learned there. And then Microsoft came calling, and I thought, Satya is at the helm. He had just implemented a bunch of changes. It looked like and felt like a very different Microsoft. I lived in the Seattle area, so I knew people who worked there. And after 18 months of conversations, we finally found a spot that was a good fit. And I spent, about 3 years at Microsoft and learned a ton about our partner ecosystem, about how to go to market globally, about the challenges that customers face in implementing software and the things they're looking for. So I really enjoyed that. And then, Intuit came calling and said, hey, we want to do kind of the same thing that you were working on at Microsoft. Microsoft was going enterprise down to like large mid-market, and Intuit wanted to come up market, and had a chance to work with some great people there. Alex Chris, who's now the CEO at PayPal, and Sasan Godarzi, who's still the CEO at Intuit, all great leaders. Scott Cook, the founder, still has his fingerprints on the business, and a lot of the principles that he and Bill Campbell put in place are still there. And so learned a ton, especially leading indicators and how to manage and integrate better product roadmaps. Intuit's probably one of the best at doing that. And but I couldn't turn down the opportunity to come to Shopify. It's been amazing. It's I have found my home. Like this is by far my favorite place I've ever been. And that's just not saying that because that's where I am right now. I really enjoy it. Toby is a teacher by default to the business, and the unorthodoxy of the business, the passion around the customers, the product first mentality, and it's probably the first I've seen where product leads the company, not commercial, not finance, not some other business unit. And that's refreshing. That's an exciting thing. And I think it's what separates us from maybe many of the others in the market.
You joined Shopify in August of 2022, and this is way past the highs we got in e-commerce, and you're still enjoying the ride. So you've come in the worst of times, and you're still having a thrill of a ride. Okay, so Shopify has always championed itself as the company that arms the rebels, essentially. Yeah. So it's been small businesses and medium-sized businesses and growing, people, just entrepreneurs. now you're making a huge foray. You've made some huge moves, particularly in the last 2 years. I'm talking, if you look at the magic, quadrant from Gartner and recently IDC, you're no longer challengers. You're leaders in the enterprise space. Do you want to break down the strategy? I mean, in 2022, looking at a graph here, in August of 2022, you were a challenger, you were in the challenger, quadrant, and then in 2023 you moved in company with Adobe, SAP, Commerce Tools, and Salesforce. So what's been the strategy and the foray from your point? Do you want to just paint
Sure.
a story for listeners, please?
Sure. I think one of the observations coming in August of 22 was that one, we had some product requirements to enter into the enterprise space that we had to prioritize and get to work on. The second was we had a series of partnerships that would be required, both commercial partnerships and how we enter the market, as well as product partnerships that extend our platform and interoperability. And we got to work pretty early on, saying that these were things that if we wanted to be the right fit for enterprise, we needed to go out and make some investments. So we did exactly that. And I would also add, maybe we weren't directly engaged. We weren't great storytellers about all of our capabilities in the enterprise. It was a little bit of the best kept secret. But I think as more and more brands have come over to Shopify that are enterprise brands that are billion-dollar brands, like some that have born out of digital native, so like the Gymsharks of the world that have grown into massive companies and have now opened up retail locations, or On Running, we announced in the last earnings, has come over to Shopify.
Really?
Bowden, West Wing across Europe have come to Shopify. I'm just naming some for your audience. And in North America, that list is times 10. As a matter of fact, one of the data points that we shared, not with Gartner because we didn't have it ready, but we did share it with IDC, and IDC just released a report in January that moved Shopify as the lone leader in their similar study. Among the peers that you just talked about, we were the only one in their version of the leader quadrant. And a lot of that's because this data point, 38, we measure, I should just say it this way, we measure the number of customers that leave us and go to our competition in the enterprise space, and the number of those that come from the competition to us. And that ratio we talked about at Investor Day. So it's a bulletproof number, 38 to 1. 38 enterprises come to Shopify now. We can talk about all the reasons why, maybe a little bit later on, for every one that leaves Shopify and goes to the competition. So, it's the product build out of OMS interoperability. It's the strategic partnerships with Manhattan and Miracle in market. Adyen is now an extended payment gateway for us in our eCommerce. We're adding it to our retail point of sale offering as well. Bringing multi-currency and local exchange settlement later this year. That's all been publicly announced. Like these are all the things that are that enterprises have been asking for, and we just needed to prioritize and get it done. So that's where we focused, and we have 4,000 engineers that wake up every day thinking about nothing but commerce. So there's a lot more coming down the pipe based on what we've heard from our clients.
So that's really, really interesting. I didn't realize On Running was on Shopify. They were like on a custom build. Okay, so what is Shopify's actual offering at enterprise? Is it very composable, or could you monolithic, or could you describe it from an architecture standpoint, please?
Sure. So one of the pivots that we made, so in 23, we launched something called Commerce Components. And if you think about Shopify is built on a series of components. It's always been built that way. And we combined them together and have offered them in the marketplace for the last 15 years as a standalone monolith. More recently, we decomponentized that and offered it into a headless environment where you can run front end or back end. We can play whatever role you would like us to play. And so then what we were hearing from the marketplace was a desire for greater composability. Now, I think there's a gradient. There's a far extreme left and right of what composable really means. There's the 1,000-piece Lego set that comes with no instructions, and some people want that level of composability. And if you have a very large dev team and you know exactly what you want to build, that is a wonderful way for you to go. And then there's the version that we see in the marketplace, which is, we run 10% of North America's commerce. We're about 8% of Europe, over 25% of ANZ in Australia and New Zealand. And with that comes a tremendous amount of insight. So we put that insight and opinion into the design of our components. And so like On Running, you just brought up a few moments ago, is a custom build. They run their checkout as a component on Shopify.
Okay.
So it's not the full stack. That would have been a heavy, heavy lift for On to make that move. But for them, composable was the right fit. And instead of the 1,000-piece Lego set of trying to assemble it together, they wanted the best performing checkout in the marketplace. And that's what a third-party study with a big 3 consulting firm just completed for us. And in our testing, that's exactly what they saw. So components for us is our version of composability. So now our enterprise offer, and we just talked about this in New York in January, is brand new into the marketplace, has now said, instead of having to make a choice between either composable or full stack or headless, let's put it all into one suite of services. And then you, the customer, choose. Do you want to start composable and migrate into headless? Do you want part of your storefronts to be composable and some of them to be full stack monolith? You choose. So instead of building a hierarchy of vertical offerings in the marketplace, we now just bundled up everything into one suite of enterprise services, added additional technical support at no cost. We're the only provider who does that, and you get a technical account manager assigned. Several hundred hours of professional services are included. We don't believe in tolling our customers to launch our product. And like those are differentiators because we make it very easy for customers to make the switch.
Okay. And then what do your top 10% of customers tend to gravitate to in your enterprise commerce offering?
Yeah, I think there are 3 things that most enterprises are talking to Shopify about. And if you're not in these 3, you may or may not be including us. But if you have these 3, these are the 3 things that we hear most often, and the reason why normally we're the right fit. One is you're trying to drive better top line performance. The third-party study I just referenced was done 1 billion different data points in the study. And basically, we stand behind it in our contract and in guarantees. We convert 15% better than every other platform in the marketplace, 36% better than Salesforce. We demoed this at NRF, and you can see it in the checkout. Like our checkout process has been optimized and honed based on that 10% that we see coming across our platform to be perfectly aligned to seamless, frictionless customer checkout and purchase. That when you compare that to the others in market and the one that I just mentioned that was the largest delta, it's 4 times faster in checkout. And it just means you have higher fidelity, higher chance of customers continuing through in your purchase. So that's one. If you're looking for performance, it's Shopify is hands down. There isn't a question. If the second one is you're looking for better total cost of ownership, one of the things we see in the marketplace right now is CTOs and CIOs and CMOs are trying to figure out how to do more with less. And there's OpEx compression in their business. So having a large group of devs behind the scenes with kind of a keep the lights on role in commerce probably isn't the best use of those resources. Shopify, because of the way we've designed the software, it's extremely complex behind the scenes, but we make it very easy to use and customize. And because of that, you don't need the same number of resources. So another third-party study that we'll be talking about at Shop Talk in Vegas in the second week in March was done, and it basically says our TCO is 22% better than everything else in market. If you add the conversion benefit, it's closer to 32% better. So if you're in the market and you're trying to figure out a way to do more with less, if you're trying to figure out a way to reallocate some of your dev resources to higher priority projects across your portfolio, Shopify is normally a pretty good pick. The last one's innovation. Like the thing that I think gets lost in the shuffle is sans the logistics purchase that we made, where we had a lesson learned, right? No side quest. We want to stay main quest, and main quest for us is commerce. That's the only thing we wake up and think about. We're not a CRM company. We're not an ERP company. We're not a marketing company. Many of those that you talked about earlier in Gartner, that's their primary purpose. Our primary purpose is nothing but commerce. Now that's e-commerce, it's retail commerce, social commerce, conversational commerce with the implementation of and advent of AI. But like at the end of the day, that's what our 4,000 engineers wake up and think about. And because of that, we have the ability to innovate and implement new products, services, and capabilities at a scale that just no one else can do in the marketplace. Our 4,000 engineers are about 10x that of any other commerce platform that's out there. And, we release about 100 new features every 6 months publicly. And then there's a series of updates we do behind the scenes of new product feature capability or new partner integration work, like the Adyen work I just talked about. Like these things are what customers want. Customers like Carrier, the air conditioning unit company. You may wonder.
I know them. I actually know them.
what are they doing on Shopify? Well, they're a business, a B2B service provider. They sell to HVAC companies all over the world. They chose Shopify, one, because of number one and number two, but more importantly because of number three. Because at the end of the day, nobody on their RFI or RFP, nobody had exactly what they wanted today. But there is a bet that's being made by every CTO that's out there, and that is who is going to innovate with me and ahead of me into the future. And we think we're uniquely positioned to do that well. Those are the three reasons why
performance, TOC, innovation. I want to speak to performance first because the audience would
Sure.
gravitate towards that. From my understanding on the outside, it appears ShopPay is at the heart of your checkout experience. Could you give us a quick synopsis on how ShopPay compares to other options in terms of like the percentage of ShopPay customers versus non-ShopPay customers, and if that is a reason why a lot of enterprise companies, I think Everlane recently announced early in the year that they'd moved to ShopPay, but all the other components in their architecture were custom. Do you want to speak to ShopPay and its impact on performance, or are there many other key aspects to increasing performance, particularly speed to checkout for consumers, because you really want to bring down that latency, and speed and checkout is what really drives up conversions.
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. Just on the last bit you just hit, our CEO says latency is pollution. I love that. I love that saying because it is the thing that impacts your SEO. It impacts your customer journeys, your click-through rates. It impacts your checkout. At the end of the day, customers have moved more towards instantaneous gratification than ever before. And the level of effort that they have to go through and the level of consideration in the choices that need to be made, like that's friction in the system. So we believe deeply that latency at every stage of the customer journey is pollution. And I think that dovetails well into ShopPay. I mean, ShopPay, the beauty of ShopPay is a couple things. One, it's the purple button that no one knows is actually Shopify. My wife constantly reminds me of all the places that don't have the purple button and puts it on my laundry list of companies to go speak to. Everlane was one of them, so I'm glad that Everlane is on board. There's a few others we'll talk about at the end of Q1 who've done the same. But here's the beauty of Shop Pay. One, it's a one-click checkout that has ease and elegance built in, like friction latency is removed. Second is the tracking feature functionality of Shop Pay. Gives customers a vote of confidence of when the goods that they've purchased will arrive, and it happens with extreme accuracy, which is something that a lot of other apps in the marketplace really don't provide. The third is just the sheer enormity of Shop Pay. I mean, Shop Pay is over 150 million shoppers that are using that app today. Only 80 million of those are in North America, so it's a very global set of customers. It has a very unique profile, very high household income. It tends to skew younger in terms of audience, which is an audience that I think every single retailer, brand, customer, anybody focused on that marketplace is focused on that audience type. Highly affluent, younger audiences, those buyers are gold. And they come back and use that app over and over and over again. So like some of what you saw at Everlane, a 15% improvement in their overall conversion rate by the implementation of Shop Pay, and a 8% improvement in average order value. Like we're very pleased with that performance, and Everlane is as well. And we historically Shop Pay was only available to our millions of Shopify users that are on our platform today. We've now made Shop Pay composable. It is something you can take and deploy on your custom stack, just like Everlane has done. Mm-hmm. And you can get similar benefits as if you were running it on Shopify's core offering. It does convert even better when combined with Shopify Core because it benefits from the checkout and all the other high performance elements of our headless and full stack offerings. But if you wanted it composable and that's the only thing that you were looking for was just a quick hit on your top line performance, deploying Shop Pay on your custom stack is absolutely an easy way to go get that.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. What are the other components that enterprise commerce shoppers will be looking for? Do they tend to have their head, and then they're looking for more composable, commerce component in the middle there? Could you break that down, please?
Yeah, sure. I think it's interesting. I've been prior to Shopify and Intuit and Microsoft, my very last role at Verizon was actually, we didn't have chief digital officers back then, but that was probably as close as you could get running the .com, running eCommerce. And I've watched this cycle of kind of hype cycles that have come in. One is, moving from on-prem to cloud. I thought back then we were at the bleeding edge. I think we were one of the first 4 Adobe Experience Manager, Adobe Marketing Cloud customers. And then it moved into headless, became like the most important thing. Now composable is on the radar. I think we're on the tail end of composable because at the end of the day, it sounds amazing. And I think you have, a wide range of what composable means in the marketplace. You have the 1,000-piece Lego set version of it, which again, if you have a huge dev team, that is absolutely the right way to go. And then there's our version of it. And I think what customers are realizing is they come in with this dream of composability. And what they're really asking for is a set of packaged up services that work for them. So the offerings that we've seen resonate most in market, one is give me the ability to extend Shop Pay as a component. So that one we've just talked about. The other one is checkout. A lot of customers just want that high performing checkout experience. And we talked a little bit about on running and that's what they chose Shopify for. In some cases, it's the ability to burst and scale. So the pod isolation that I talked about is something that we do uniquely for customers that have a very high velocity business. If you look at customers like Supreme that need upwards of 40,000 checkouts per minute, that's not something we offer standard in the market. We package it up as a component And if that is a unique use case that's important to you, we can bring that to bear based on your order volume. So you see that in high tech places where, the new iPhone gets launched and you have 40,000, 30,000 checkouts happening per minute at midnight as soon as it's available.
Mm-hmm.
You see it in kind of constrained, limited supply is probably the better way to say it. Limited supply offerings, like what Supreme does in market. There's a drop that comes,
Mm-hmm.
super high demand. Everything happens all at once. So like we have the ability to meet that need. There's several others on the back end that we can put into place.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's really up to the customer on what it is that's most important to them. And traditionally, if it's driving performance, it's going to be checkout or shop pay.
Mm-hmm.
If it's driving a scalable experience, it's probably going to be in the pod isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's back office, we have the ability to do that. We just don't see a whole lot of back office composability as a high demand in the market. We offer it, but not what I would say is one of the top three.
I think one of the reasons from a user perspective that really impressed us as users with Shopify in the small and medium size in the SME space essentially was its ease of use. Just does that appeal to enterprise clients, or are they more into scale, as in with the pods, or performance from a checkout or shop pay perspective? Do they care much about that ease of use from a back end perspective?
Yeah, ease of use has always been important. I liken Shopify's growth into the marketplace similar to AWS. Like back in my life, I saw Azure, which is an enterprise offering, working down market, and I watched AWS, which was built for developers, working up market. And Shopify is very similar to that. Built for developers, built for entrepreneurs. As Toby has reminded me several times, our software isn't simple. Our software is extremely complex. And just like any artist, it's written in a way that removes the complexity of our software for our customers. And that takes effort. I mean, the easy way would just be shipping the more raw version of the Shopify stack to our enterprise clients and letting them figure it out. But we believe, again, in making complex things simple. And simple is so much easier to operate. And yeah, it is a primary consideration for enterprises. How easy is it for me to customize my storefront? How easy is it for me to integrate into my inventory management or my order management systems? How does Shop Pay enrich my customer data platform, my CDP, and help my loyalty platform with retargeting? How do things like audiences help me find repeat buyers in the marketplace that I don't have access to because of the new rules with cookies that Apple's put into market, and audiences across those 180 million, 150 million Shop Pay customers? Like we have the ability to help customers with retargeting and still be adherent to GDPR. So simple, complex things made simple is I think what we do really well, and it's in high demand.
Yeah, simple does it a lot of the time. What about the TOC component? Where enterprise, commerce clients of yours making the most savings? You did mention overheads, in terms of talent's really important now in this time and age. But are you seeing them essentially take entire solutions off their existing stack and replacing it with alternatives from Shopify? Is Shopify's offering even more cost competitive in that respect, or is it really due to you not needing the amount of resources to doing the same thing? It's just more that efficiency sort of brings in comes it again into play in the back end performance of Shopify.
Yeah. So the total cost of ownership that I talked about was another big three consulting firm study, different one than did the checkout study. And we didn't know what the answer was going to be. But we wanted to look across the 4 stages of a customer journey. What's the cost to implement the commerce solution? What's the cost associated with purchasing that commerce solution and all the peripheral costs that come along with it, the app architecture, any custom work that's needed behind the scenes to augment that capability to make it work for you. And the actual billing itself, like how much does it cost, physically cost just for the software itself? And then how much does it cost to continue to manage that? All the software updates and patching. Is there hosting cost involved or no hosting cost involved? Is there, what are the amount of resources dedicated to operating that commerce platform? And how much time does it take to make the changes that are required to meet the needs of your customers getting ready for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, particular drop ships that may be coming in that you want to feature or prioritize, your loyalty campaign augmentation. Like all of that stuff comes with somebody behind the scenes having to interoperate with the software to make it do what you want it to do. And so the study really was fairly even-handed, and that was a bit surprising to, I think, all of us. One, there's a benefit and ease of getting launched on Shopify. You know, when Indigo, who is a think of them as kind of like the Barnes and Noble of Canada, had a cyber attack and went down. One of those firms that you mentioned in Magic Quadrant was still 2 years into their build, and it's still not operational today. In 3 days, we got a storefront up and running with them, and within a week, they were able to batch pricing. Now, it wasn't beautiful the way it all integrated on the back end, but we were able to keep Indigo alive in a place where the incumbent was still in launch phase, 2 years later. Bye Bye Baby up and running in 4 months. 4.5 to 6 months is about the average time horizon to launch on Shopify. And in comparison and contrast, like most others, you're going to be 9 months to a year, if not longer. And if you're looking composable, I saw a data point, not ours. It was one of our competitors who had shared it, but like a lot of the 1,000-piece Lego set implementations, like there's a good chance close to 50% of those are failing. So like one of the conversations we have with customers is, what's your time horizon to implement and how important is that to your business? And we document and work backwards on what that implementation plan is to make sure we hit that date and we don't go longer than that date. So the implementation is something we do really well. Our pricing constructs in market just in general are very favorable to everyone else's in marketplace. So we knew that was going to be the case because we could see the numbers. We could see the numbers in the bids. And then the TCO part on the cost of ongoing management. We thought there was a value there, but we didn't have hard data until the study was done. And it's pretty balanced. Again, it's in that 20 to 30% of resources have an opportunity to be redeployed elsewhere. And the speed with which they can implement was so much faster that they were just getting more done with fewer people. And I think most CTOs are looking to do that across their entire team. So if we can help them with that in the commerce side, it allows them to go spend time on ERP or one of the other places that may need a little more help.
Interesting. We had the agent, the founder of the agency that did the Shopify Plus for Bye Bye Baby on the podcast early in January. His name's Nirav Sheth. He did a predictions episode with us, and it was one of the things they really wanted to announce, and we were quite excited about it. So from an innovation standpoint, where are you seeing a lot of activity? We briefly mentioned B2B. And obviously there's so many consumer brands that we're hearing, coming on Shopify platform every now and then. Are you focusing on specific industries, or are you just industry agnostic at this point in time? And what are your prospects for B2B?
Yeah, we're very excited about B2B. It's interesting. The journeys historically at Shopify have been exclusively e-commerce, a little bit of retail, a little bit of B2B, but never shall the three crisscross. We're actually seeing now, like those in our mid market. We define mid market as kind of 5 million to 25 million in GMV. About 20% of those that are coming to Shopify are coming to Shopify not just for our e-commerce, but for e-commerce and B2B. And we see the same thing up market. Customers like Carrier, the air conditioning company, coming to Shopify. That they're a $4 billion brand, and they were on legacy Salesforce. They looked at, and at the end of the day, they chose Shopify, and not necessarily because of all the capabilities we have today. I think what they found was in their RFP, nobody had exactly what they wanted, but it was a bet on the future. It was a bet on the innovation and the speed of innovation. And if you talk to Steve, who ran the RFP over at Shopify, he would tell you that the release cycles, the amount of committed engineering resources to the B2B platform, the roadmap that we shared with them over the next year was so compelling that they were comfortable coming to Shopify, and choosing us in that regard. And there's several others that have come on board since then. GoPuff, Bevmo, a few others that have selected Shopify for all the same reasons. So B2B will continue to be a growth engine, and it's also a part of the customer maturity. Again, depending on how you've started your company, if you were a digital native e-commerce first, the next logical step for you is to enter into the B2B marketplace, become a wholesaler, get expanded distribution. You also then realize that you probably also need a brick and mortar location to feature your brand. Look at Gymshark and what they just opened up in London. Digital native, social driven, high influencer model, now has an amazing retail location that's just absolutely fascinating. Like if you haven't been there, go take a look. It's beautiful. And that all runs on Shopify. And our goal is to create integrated experiences across all three of those platforms, so that you have one system of one commerce platform of record that extends across your B2B, D2C, and retail experiences. And we think things like Shop Pay, as an example, help that extension happen, especially in your e-commerce and retail environments.
Okay, makes sense. So a lot of the activity in B2B will be net 30 or net, whatever the terms are. And you tend to find, at least from my experience, that the e-commerce component for B2B is more sampling, testing small units. What part of the spectrum is Shopify playing at in the B2B space, and what's top on the shopping list of a B2B, a typical B2B customer or potential customer looking to make that transition from whatever platform they are to enterprise, to Shopify Plus?
No, it's a great question. We service, our B2B offering services the full go-to-market segmentation that we have today. It's an enterprise offering, it's a mid-market offering, it's for small businesses just getting started. There's two things that really stand out that I think are shifting. One is an ask that I think has been around for forever, which is just more control. And the second is the ability to influence. I think far too long, B2B has been viewed as this ledger to ledger kind of interaction. It's a facilitation of money and inventory transfer. And I think that's the old way to look at B2B. That is a kind of keep the lights on version. But I think what we're finding now from some of the largest brands in the world is that they want to have the ability to have greater influence in the wholesale buying behavior of their extended B2B merchants and partners. And in order to do that, you actually need to kind of blur the lines between commerce and B2B. You need to have the ability to showcase offers and discount schedules, not just those that are in contract, but those that are designed to create influence. You're seeing B2B start to do more and more, I won't call them loyalty, but like loyalty-like offerings in their platform. These are things that if you're simply looking at facilitating inventory transfer and ledger-to-ledger financial transfers, you probably aren't in engineering for that. So I think we have a unique perspective that we believe B2B absolutely has the ability to influence their ecosystem's purchase behavior. And we think Shopify uniquely does that well.
Super, super interesting. So we're running out of time now. We're still, I'd like to still say we're at the start of 2024. What are your trends? What are the e-commerce trends, the commerce trends you anticipate, particularly given the subject of this conversation, which is enterprise commerce? Where do you see a lot of activity going on there?
I think we're going to continue to see, depending on whether you think it's a hard landing, soft landing of the macro environment, we're going to continue to see people focused on total cost of ownership. How can I do more with less will be a theme. We hear it all over the place. We're here to help. I think you're going to continue to see enterprises that have built up a set of capabilities. Custom is still 50% of the marketplace. That are struggling. They don't know how they can make a material change in either top line performance or cost without having to do something heavy. Composable is here to help in that regard. We think we have the components that are the highest impact, lightest lift that you can put into your existing ecosystem and get an immediate rate of return. Deploying Shop Pay on the edge is a 60-day, 90-day implementation. It is fairly easy to get up and running and operating. Take advantage of that conversion benefit. I also think there's a shift. I don't know if it'll happen in 24, but I am seeing an emergence of kind of a move away from composable at all costs to more a shift back to the customer. There's this rising tide of focus on customer experiences. How do you create deep, rich, meaningful connection with your customer in ways that are really hard to do in a traditional kind of Web 2.0 framework or the kind of tile constructs that are out in the marketplace today. I was talking with a high-end fashion retailer just recently. I won't name them here, but they said we're a little bit different than most places. Our retail stores are designed to create an experience of premium luxury goods. How do I make that real in my digital storefront? How does my .com emerge as premium in its offering, where you can see the stitching and you can interact with the product in a way that you're accustomed to in a store that, again, the traditional click and tile approach of most commerce sites doesn't fit. And so we're doing a lot of work there, and a lot of our roadmap is around kind of product immersion and extracting out the things that are unique to our customer and trying to make those real in a Web 2 e-commerce way. So I think that's going to be true. The other one is, I'll give you one last one. Everybody, and I mean everybody, is trying to figure out how to extend their shopping experiences and level of customization that they have in e-commerce into their brick and mortar locations. We think we help in that regard very uniquely because of Shop Pay. Email capture is hard to get unless you have a really strong loyalty program. I think grocery's probably done it the best. You really don't know who your customer is. Worse yet, if they're not a repeat buyer of yours that you have documented, you are completely blind. So you need to find ways to capture that information and build a narrative, build a relationship with those customers. And again, we think at Shopify we have a couple solutions that that help enable that. And we think that that's going to be more and more important as we go through 24 and 25.
Okay, we never talked about Shopify POS, which is your retail offering, particularly in regards to Shop Pay and POS. Does that identity, Shop Pay identity, follow the customer into retail environment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like one of the things we see in a lot of the retail stores where we have the one-click checkout enabled,
Mm-hmm.
30-35% capture. And a little more than half of those are not their existing customers. They're nowhere to be found in their loyalty platform.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an audience that is brand new to this customer, to the customer that we're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an enrichment that comes with being able to go back and re-engage with that customer, either through the Shop app, because you can do it directly through the Shop app. Your products and services now become top of mind. It ends up pinned in their Shop app themselves, so they could purchase direct through the Shop app into your storefront, or to bring them back to your store because you now have access to that information. That's super valuable. And then all the stuff we've done with endless aisle, abandoned cart or still in cart online, and extending those experiences into store. Shopify enables all of that, and we're really excited to help people learn more and more about what we're doing to help traditional retailers create great experiences for their customers.
Are we going to see the first till-less retail store powered by Shopify, kind of like what Amazon did in their stores?
I'm not able to share details that are not publicly related on our roadmap.
Fair enough.
But thank you for asking. That was a really good last minute question. Look, it's an exciting time. Like the enterprises have a tough job. 2024 is going to be a challenging year, and they just need to know you don't have to go it alone. There's all sorts of different levels of effort where you can get immediate benefit or bigger benefit if you're willing to do something more material. And we think Shopify comes along, and we're intentionally focused on helping our customers win. So at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. And if there's something we don't have currently or isn't on our roadmap, rest assured, with the engineering talent we have, we will get there very quickly.
Fantastic. Bobby, thank you for coming on the podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and just congratulations with the direction Shopify Plus is going in the enterprise space. It's a pleasure to have you on the 2x eCommerce podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much, Goonie. I really appreciate it.
Okay, all done.